Good morning, guys, and welcome to my unboxing and review of the high-grade Gundam Dantalion. This is a 2017 standard release Iron-Blooded Orphans high grade that I got for around $22, which is about typical, like, standard high-grade price in the States. As you can see here by this very nice box art, the Gundam Dantalion's main gimmick is going to be the giant fists that you can mount on it. Unfortunately, this is not the completed version of the Dantalion. As far as I'm aware, that version doesn't really have a kit. So basically, the Dantalion has kind of three big accessory parts to mount on it: the top booster, the bottom booster, and the Aegis chest armor. The standard release version in this box only comes with the top booster to make the half cowl version of the Dantalion with these giant fists. Of course, the bottom booster gives it giant legs, and the Aegis armor mounts on the chest and gives it much thicker chest armor and a new head. So this is a 2017 standard release, as you can see, number 38 in the line. This is from the Iron-Blooded Orphans side story manga. I think it was called like Iron-Blooded Orphans Gecko or something like that. I believe this was also in Tri-Age. I don't know which came first, but yeah. This is, I think, Gundam frame number 71 out of the 72 ever created. So in lore, this is one of the last Gundam frames to ever be made. And it's honestly pretty cool because, again, I'm a kind of sucker for mechs for your mech, and this having giant arms, kind of Astray Powered Red style, is a huge point in its favor, in my opinion. So, of course, you have some very nice box art on the front here, showing off the Dantalion flying through space with the half cowl covering the top arms. And over here, you see kind of like obscured in shadow a bit, the kind of half face of, I'm not sure if that's, I'm not sure exactly who that's supposed to be. It kind of looks like Barbados, but again, I'm not sure. It's probably something from the side story manga that I'm not aware of. Maybe Astaroth, I don't know. On the bottom here, showing off the Dantalion in a number of different poses, showing off the back of the Dantalion with the half cowl on. Again, recreating that kind of box art pose here with the half cowl. Of course, using the main weapon that comes in the kit. I think it's called like the large bayonet rifle or something like that. Here it is with the rifle kind of folded up and the cowl in the top booster form. Of course, it will come with a little stand to prop up the top booster because look at the design. It is extremely back heavy. That thing is not standing on its own. It's very nice that they included a stand. And here it is in the naked form without any of the equipment or boosters, just kind of the base Gundam with its weapon. On the back here, just showing off that the IBO line is customizable and that if you buy multiple of the kits, you can kind of mix and match parts to create your own kind of custom Gundam frame IBO kit, which is kind of cool. But with all that out of the way, let's go right into it. So inside the box, we get 3 bags of runners, which is honestly pretty standard for a high grade. I forgot to point it out, but the box is about standard thickness for a kind of standard high-grade box, so I'm expecting pretty typical high-grade kind of parts count. And here we have the manual in a kind of standard IBO style with the box art on the top here, and some information about the Gundam Dantalion and this pilot, Zaza Fossil, in both English and Japanese. So I think IBO kind of marked the point where Bandai realized, hey, the West likes Gunpla too, we might as well print it in English as well so we can know what's going on. So there's information here about the Gundam itself and the pilot from the side story manga. And then, of course, on the back here, showing off the weaponry of the Dantalion, you have the 100mm bayonet rifle, showing off the bayonet rifle in sword mode, and showing off the half cowl with the giant fists, which I think is going to look really cool on this thing. And, of course, you have a color guide here in color. But getting into the manual here, it looks like it is going to be a pretty typical high-grade build. Nothing really out of the ordinary. Being a 2017 standard release, it is going to be using polycaps, so about the usual from a modern but not post-Witch from Mercury high grade. And then on the back here in color, showing off the construction of the top booster / half cowl, showing off kind of propping it up on that stand there, and then how to convert it into the half cowl form there. With all that out of the way, getting into the contents of the bags. So inside the bags, we get 7 runners, which is pretty typical kind of standard high-grade parts count, alongside this color-correcting sticker sheet, which is a bit large, but again, pretty typical for a high grade of the time. We're going to get some of the usual stickers, like these metallic red detail stickers, stickers for the eyes, what appears to be some kind of head camera, in addition to some color-correcting stickers, some black color-correcting sticker details for filling in kind of like void parts to show that things are like kind of hollow, some yellow detail stickers here, some blue detail stickers, and some red detail stickers. So nothing that can't be fixed with a little painting, but I'm probably going to use the yellow stickers because, again, the yellow paint that I have is kind of runny and doesn't cover evenly, so it doesn't look super good. The red and blue I'll probably just paint in myself. So getting into the runners themselves. So these runners were printed in August of 2024, so starting with the polycaps. Like I said earlier, this is a modern but not post-switch for Mercury high grade, so this is going to be using a standard set of 1/144th scale polycaps here for the joints, using PC002 for a standard set of high grade polycaps. So in standard IBO fashion, runner A is not going to be specific to this kit. It is going to be the Gundam frame runner. You've seen this runner in my video on the Barbados 6th form. This is, I don't know how well you can see that, but I believe this text says like IBO Gundam 4 or Gundam Frame 4 or something like that. This is a 2016 runner containing pretty much all of our generic frame parts, including some standard holding hands. Runner B from 2017 for the Gundam Dantalion is going to be a 4-color runner here. You have white as kind of the main armor color here for parts for the legs, arms, etc., and backs of the hands, etc. You have this section of the runner here in a kind of off-white gray color for some auxiliary armor parts, as well as parts for what looks like the bottoms of the feet. You have yellow here for some accent parts, including the V-fin, and then you have blue for some additional kind of accent armor parts. Runner C in a primer dark frame gray is going to contain some of our like kind of auxiliary frame parts and joint parts. You have what looks to be the parts for the backpack, and then some parts for the kind of large bayonet sword. And then runners D1 and D2, D2 being a copy of this part of D1, in this kind of black color, is going to contain a lot more frame parts, including parts for the half cowl slash T booster, as well as parts for the stand to prop up the T booster, because again, it's going to make this thing super back heavy. It's not going to be able to stand up on its own. And then last but not least, runner E here. We have a very small part here for the head of the Dantalion, and apart from that, the rest of this is pretty much going to be for the T booster slash half cowl, for parts for the very large fists, including parts for the fingers. So all that out of the way, I will see you after the build. All right, welcome back. Here's the high-grade Gundam Dantalion, at least the naked form. Snap built, panel lined, well, lightly, because there aren't that many opportunities to properly panel line this thing, and painted over to correct all of the color inaccuracies that I saw, and there were plenty. But first, getting into the build, this is, of course, going to be a pretty typical high-grade Iron-Blooded Orphans kind of Gundam frame experience, in that while there is more inner frame than you would normally expect from a high-grade, being that the Gundam frames are kind of an intrinsic part to the plot of Iron-Blooded Orphans, so they are included in the high grades, being that a lot more of the frame is visible than in most other kits. While there is more frame than usual, apart from that, the complexity involved in making this kit isn't that dissimilar from other high grades. If you've built any of the high-grade Iron-Blooded Orphans Gundam frame kits, like the Barbados 6th form that I took a look at a couple weeks ago, this is going to be about the same level of complexity as that. It's pretty solid. The frame that is there that's visible at least, looks quite nice. There are some parts like in the shoulders that are going to be obscured by the armor. That's very simplified, as you would expect from a high grade. This kit essentially has an almost complete inner frame. The only part of this kit that is missing inner frame parts are going to be the forearms, which are hollow. Apart from that, there is a full complete inner frame that is mostly detailed up in about the same level of detail that you would expect from other high-grade like parts and kits. So overall, the build is fine. There isn't really much to talk about there, at least for the mobile suit. For the weapon, the bayonet rifle, it is going to be fairly simple. Two halves that close together for the rifle portion, two halves that close together for the sword portion, and then one handle piece that slots in when you're using it in the rifle form. The T booster slash half cowl parts is more involved than you would expect, especially for a backpack. As you can see, this is quite large with many parts that have to articulate and move, so that's going to be fairly involved, but again, nothing super kind of crazy complex compared to typical high grades, so all of that's completely normal. In terms of aesthetics, not getting into color accuracy just yet, we're going to talk about that in a bit, but in general, the kind of proportions for this kit are a little off. It's pretty subdued, at least in terms of the shape and volume that this takes up compared to a lot of other kits. You see it with the fairly small shoulders, you see it with the kind of understated head that's a lot rounder, less angular, there's a lot less protrusions, especially with that smaller V-fin. That gives it a kind of odd, like, humanoid gangly alien look. It's kind of hard to explain. The general silhouette is mostly human-like, which is a little odd compared to a lot of the other Gundam frames, which are very kind of over the top and angular and aggressive and edgy. This is relatively understated, at least in the naked form. Once you put the T-booster or the half cowl top on, then of course it gets completely over the top. But just like the base mobile suit itself is very understated compared to a lot of its peers, which makes it unique if you get like close up and look at it, but doesn't necessarily give it the most presence on the shelf. Again, this is only counting the naked form of the Dantalion. Really the only thing that kind of silhouette-wise that betrays the fact that it's kind of like super IBO is that the very thin kind of midsection with the exposed pistons that are very typical for the Gundam frames, and these large legs with the kind of almost animalistic kind of backwards bend after the knee. Apart from that, again, it's very subdued. It's almost minimalist in terms of like silhouette and stuff. Again, very understated, which I think is pretty cool. I really like how the head makes it look like a kind of weird humanoid alien thing, as opposed to the very clearly super mechanical, angular heads of a lot of the other Gundam frames in IBO. But color accuracy now. That is kind of the big problem with this kit. Even outside of the color correcting stickers, of which I only used a few. I really only used the metallic stickers, the kind of textured sticker 5 here, and then the black fill-in stickers for the T booster. Apart from that, I just painted in all of the details with a Gundam marker, pretty quick and simple. For the yellow, I just used seed yellow. I don't really have the kind of orangey tone of yellow that you're supposed to use with this kit, so I just used that. In my opinion, it looks fine. Like you see it on the crotch, the knees, and the head there. It does kind of contrast with the orange, but I don't think in a bad way. It looks fine. I don't have the kind of orange-ish yellow paint that you would need for this. It's the same kind of shade of orange if you've ever built the high-grade gem Striker from 2007. That kit's almost 20 years old. Great kit, by the way. But that uses the same shade of kind of orange. For the blue parts on the back here, and then you'll see it on the crotch as it spins around, I just use standard seed blue. I probably should have primed it with some white underneath, but I just put blue on the gray and it looks okay. And then for the red on the T booster, for these two parts here, I just used a standard Gundam red marker set from the basic set 1. But yeah, in general, a lot of the parts to paint on this kit are pretty simple. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, on the metallic parts here, I used Shine Silver and filled in the black using a black panel liner. For the blade of the bayonet rifle, I used EX Plated Silver, so essentially chrome. And yeah, again, all of these parts were fairly easy to paint in. A lot of them are recessed details, or distinct enough that you can paint them in without really needing to mask. You can just clean it up with a bit of rubbing alcohol if you're using Gundam markers. It's pretty quick and easy. But yeah, this kit definitely kind of needs the paint, because without it, it looks very plain and cheap, because especially with these parts in silver, it's all just one big molded white piece for the limbs, so that looks very not good. It'll look okay if you kind of fill in the void details with black panel liner, but if you just leave it white, it looks very off and not great. The only kind of painted details that I missed while I was assembling it and only noticed after the fact are this tab on the back of the head is supposed to be in the same light gray as the shoulders. And as this spins around, you'll see the pistons in that very kind of distinctive Gundam frame midsection there. The top part of the pistons are supposed to be in silver, of course being a kind of mechanical detail there. It's just molded in that kind of frame gray on the runner. So yeah, the color accuracy is a bit worse than most other, especially modern high grades in this kit. I'll point them out in a bit after I go over the color correcting stickers on this kit. Starting with sticker 1. For a very tiny metallic blue head camera sticker that's not really visible. You can't really see it on camera, and it's very hard to see in person unless there's light directly shining on it, reflecting the blue off of the front head camera there, but it is there. Sticker 2 is, of course, going to be the typical Gundam metallic eye stickers. The Dantalion uses yellow eyes with a black border. Again, these are quite small and somewhat difficult to make out on camera. They're much easier to make out in person. Stickers 3 and 4 are going to be the large black square stickers you saw in the unboxing section. They're going to be used in the T booster. Sticker 4 is going to be a square used kind of, I don't know if you can see that, but they're here, but they're here at the kind of top of the arm of the half cowl section, and the rectangular ones are going to be used here for these kind of, I guess, side thruster parts on the side of the T booster. Of course, you get one for each side. Sticker 5 is going to be a kind of textured metallic gray sticker that goes on the top of the chest. I don't know how well you can see that as the light reflects off it, but there is a very kind of distinct, almost photo etch-like texture to it. Again, it's very hard to make out unless you get pretty close to it. In person, it just kind of looks like a reflective silvery color. 6 and 7 are going to be yellow there's going to be yellow wraparound stickers they're supposed to use on these kind of side details on the cheeks of the Dantalion. Again, I did not use those, I just painted them in. Sticker 8, similarly, is going to be a yellow wraparound sticker they're supposed to use for this small detail on the crotch. Again, all these wraparound stickers look pretty terrible, even if you think you apply them well, the creases look very bad on them. So these parts I definitely recommend you just give it a once over with a Gundam marker, or something like that. Sticker 9, you get 2 of. They're going to be on the fronts of the knees. Again, just painted that in seed yellow. Stickers 10 and 11 are going to go on the side of the crotch for these kind of blue details on the side. Again, this front crotch part is just one part. That's not color separated at all. It's just in that kind of primer gray. Sticker 12, you get 2 of. They are the red painted parts I pointed out on the T-booster / top cowl for these parts here. And then stickers 13, 14, 15, and 16, you get 2 of each. They are also going to be on the top booster / top cowl. They are these red metallic stickers. You get 2 on each side. For a total of 4 per, I guess, arm or booster of it. So yeah, overall, the sticker application is a little more than you would expect from a usual high grade, but again, nothing too crazy. What does get a little crazy is the parts that aren't covered by the color correcting stickers. Starting, of course, with things that you would expect, the kind of black hollow sections that you see in a lot of high grades that are supposed to represent kind of like hollow see-through details like into the frame of the kit. Of course, you will get them on the shoulders, on the front and the back. The actual shoulder part is color separated and the light gray it's supposed to be in, which is nice. You also see them here in the knees, kind of below the yellow knee section. These parts are just in white, so I just shaded them in with a panel liner. And then getting into the kind of main issue with the color accuracy of this kit being the various kind of frame parts that are supposed to poke through the armor. Again, it gives it kind of like a unique kind of patchwork design where the very kind of cool frame, I guess scaffolding or structure of the mobile suit is poking out through the armor. So they will be, of course, on both sides of the legs. These parts are, as I mentioned earlier, just molded in white in one big piece on the runner. I did paint them in shine silver and shaded in the parts that are supposed to be kind of hollow or see-through with black panel liner. So of course we have one on each side of the leg on both legs. You will also have them on the arms, one on each side, that are not color accurate out of the box, including these kind of large, I don't know, I think it's supposed to be like a large bolt or something, like this large cap on the forearm. You will see them, of course, at the top of the torso, these 2 silver parts that I painted in here, and then you will see it on the back with these 2 parts here. Of course, this tab is also supposed to be in that kind of silvery color, and it's not. And the other kind of main thing that isn't color accurate is this part of the back. This kind of whole back piece comes off pretty easily. It's just one kind of molded gray piece on the runner. As you can see, I painted it kind of separately to be color accurate. The top part is supposed to be in the same blue as the rest of the Dantalion. Again, I should have put a white undercoat or primer layer before putting on the blue. It's a little bit darker than it's supposed to be, but I think it looks fine. So yeah. Overall, a lot of color inaccuracy in this kit. If you want to have this kit look good, definitely have light gray or silver paint to kind of fill in all of these details alongside or all over the kit to help it really shine. Once you paint it all in, it does look quite good. The shine catching the light definitely helps it stand out on the shelf, because apart from that, again, like I mentioned earlier, the kind of understated silhouette and design of this kit that lends itself to being really cool when looked at close up, but from far away it doesn't really stand out on the shelf, doesn't have much presence. For a quick height comparison, here's the high grade Gundam Dantalion naked form alongside the high grade Blue Destiny Unit 1. So this is a standard size high grade, of course, the Dantalion fitting the very kind of lanky proportions of this kit, the very kind of skeletal gaunt look of it, is going to be a little taller than your standard high grade. Nothing crazy, of course this is not approaching new Gundam levels of height, but yeah, just keep in mind that this will take up a little more vertical space than a standard high grade on your shelf, and especially once you mount the rather large T-booster, either in booster or cowl form, it is going to take up a lot more volume than a typical high grade. So in terms of accessories, here's the high grade Gundam Dantalion with everything it comes with. This appears to be a bit sparse in terms of accessories, but apart from this adapter here, they all have multiple different uses, which definitely help elevate the kind of status or utility of all of these accessories. Starting, of course, with the kit's weapon, the bayonet rifle. Of course, the blade parts here are not color separated. I just painted them in with a chrome Gundam marker. So this is the main weapon of the kit. As I mentioned earlier, it's fairly simple. It's just 2 halves sandwiched together for the ranged portion, 2 halves for the blade portion, and a handle piece. And it looks fine. It's a pretty interesting rifle look. I'm a big fan of things like of weapons like this with a folded up blade, something similar to the kind of GN gun slash blade for the Exia. I'm not the biggest fan of the Exia's design, but I really like its weapon. And it's the same case here. Like, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty standard looking rifle just here, but it has a big blade bolted onto the bottom. When you want to use it in blade form, you just fold up the blade here, pop out the handle, and instead of a rifle, you have a rather large sword that is going to be a little taller than the Dantalion itself. So, of course, a very large, impressive weapon. Definitely going to look very good, especially when held by the top cowl over there. So yeah, pretty cool weapon. Not much else to say besides that. Of course, to use the bayonet rifle with the top cowl there, you will have this small adapter that will fit into one of the hands of the top cowl when it's in cowl form, and then this will just clip onto the handle of the bayonet rifle, like just the sword handle here. So yeah, not much else to say about that, just a simple adapter. And of course we have the main kind of accessory of this kit. It's the main reason I bought this kit, because a Gundam with giant fists is pretty cool. The top booster here, of course, it will come with a large tripod stand here that, well, it forms a tripod with the Dantalion's legs, but of course you need this stand to help prop it up, because this, as you can imagine, will make the Dantalion very, very back heavy. Even on when it's on an action base, the base will be prone to tipping over unless it's a rather large, like, master grade sized base. So yeah, not much else to say about the base. You can adjust the height, just pop this out, and then you can adjust the height as necessary. For the booster itself, I won't transform it now, you'll see it in the posing section, but yeah, this is it in the booster form. It does have a full transformation to change it into the top cowl. The kind of arms extend out and all that to give it a bunch of, like, kind of full articulation. As it is now, it just kind of sits here, and the only real articulation you have, because the base is kind of holding these two level, is just kind of adjusting the fingers of what would be the hands in the cowl mode there. Apart from that, not much else to say other than this is a very impressive looking accessory, and I am excited to see how this looks in the posing section. So moving on to articulation now. A lot of this is what you would have seen if you saw my video on the Barbados 6th form, pretty standard for the Gundam frame underneath. But we'll run through it pretty quickly if you haven't seen that video. For head articulation, this is going to be on a double kind of ball joint polycap here. So for the top look, you will get a pretty standard slight upward look, nothing too crazy. Downward look will be much better. You can look down to its own chest. It will have a decent side to side tilt, and will of course rotate full 360 around here. Again, if you've built any high grade that uses this polycap double ball joint, you know exactly what to expect. For the shoulders here, the shoulder can rotate up independently of the arm to allow for an upward raise of almost 180 degrees. Not quite last shooting, but still quite nice, especially with this polycap joint in the torso, like kind of hinging out like that. You will, of course, get a swing forward, although not super far before it pops out of the torso there. But again, this is adequate for, especially with what the accessories that this kit comes with. You will get a full 360 rotation in the upper bicep, although I don't know what it is with this kit specifically, but the connection between the bicep and the shoulder seems a little loose on the Dantalion. It wasn't with the Barbados, but this pops out a little more than I would like. Unfortunately, only a single joint in the elbow, which will give a little more than a 90-degree bend, so not great. And the rest is going to be on a ball joint, which will do ball joint things. I forgot to mention, for hand options, you only have these high-grade holding hands, a little unfortunate. And for the torso then, this kind of very hollow skeletal lower section of the torso kind of implies that this is going to have a lot of crunch, but it really doesn't. It has an okay forward crunch and a okay back crunch, so nothing too crazy. You will have some very decent side-to-side crunch though. And of course a full 360 rotation, as you would expect. For the waist then, there aren't really any skirts to speak of. There are these two little ledges on the side, but they don't get in the way at all, so they can't articulate, so they don't really count. The back skirt is stuck in place. In the hips then, there is going to be the same kind of swing mechanism that you saw on the Barbados 6th form that allows one leg to swing forward while the other swings back. It also allows for a slight drop, although I don't know if that's an intended bit of articulation or if it's just a issue, or if it's just a slight build thing where it's a little loose and doesn't fit as snugly as it should. But for kicks then, for forward kicks, you will get about 90 degrees. For side raises, you will get a full 90 degrees. And for rear kicks, you will get a little more than 45 degrees. So decent kicks overall. You will of course get well, you would have gotten full rotation in the upper thigh if the back skirts didn't get in the way of this kind of frame poking up out of the top of the thigh. In the knees then, there is a double joint, giving you a full bend, a 180 bend in the knee. It looks a little awkward with this much of the high-grade frame being exposed on the inside, but the Dantalion can pull it off. On the ankles then, the ankle armor is just kind of stuck in place, but again, it's pretty out of the way and doesn't really get in the way of anything. The foot will kick forward a decent amount, downward and not great amount, but it's mostly okay. Yeah, so there is some separation between the toe and the heel that allows the toe to kind of tilt upwards independently of the heel a decent amount, and downward an extremely far amount. I don't know why you would want to tilt it down that far. Just be careful that you don't pop the ankle armor out like I did just now. And of course you will get some side to side, although nothing too spectacular. So yeah, overall articulation is pretty solid. It's about what you would expect from a typical high grade, more articulation than you would expect in the feet. But yeah, overall, it's pretty alright. The only real kind of sore spot is the lack of a double joint on the elbow. But yeah, apart from that, the articulation is fine, and let's see it in some action. And some poses. So getting the Dantalion naked form into a bit of a spin here, starting with the usual running and gunning pose. This is to demonstrate a few things, as you might have expected from seeing the very thin feet. This kit has a lot of trouble balancing on one foot. It is perfectly stable on 2 feet, similar to the Barbados 6th form when you had the 6th form, like kind of high heel feet. This is the same story. 2 feet, it's perfect. It's mostly balanced. On 1 foot, it's extremely difficult. This was attempt to like 4 or 5 to get it into a spin. All of the other times it fell over doing so. This also demonstrates that the Dantalion, while it looks good in motion, it doesn't necessarily look the greatest on the ground, especially with these proportions being very kind of lanky and gaunt. It definitely looks a lot better in the air. Although it looks alright on the ground in motion, I would definitely prefer it in the air. The bayonet rifle does also look quite good, especially in this kind of a mobile firing pose. This also shows off a little bit of the kind of awkwardness that the knee appears in, with the way, like, how wide the armor separates and the knee kind of getting pulled out a little bit from the thigh. It just looks a bit awkward and not something I would definitely consider posing this kit in on the shelf. So, unfolding the bayonet rifle to make the kind of large sword, this is my best attempt to recreate the kind of box art pose for the Huckbind Mark II Trombe. I did review that kit. That kit looks fantastic, great articulation. This kit's not as much. While it definitely looks good, I really like how the sword looks. It looks extremely impressive. It looks a lot better with the half cowl on. In the kind of Dantalion naked form, it doesn't look the greatest. The sword's weight isn't really an issue. The arm and shoulder can handle it pretty well. The problem is, if you look at the feet, the side rotation of the feet isn't the greatest. I mentioned earlier that the ankle armor doesn't get in the way. I was partially wrong. The ankle armor only gets in the way if you try to attempt to rotate the feet in an extreme angle to get both feet planted on the ground. If you do that, the ankle armor tends to pop off, so I have one of the feet kind of awkwardly floating there. So while the sword looks good, and the Dantalion looks good using the sword, the proportions are definitely a little bit off on it, and I would definitely not pose it on the ground swinging the sword. Maybe kind of slung over the shoulder, but that's about it, in the naked form at least. So getting the Dantalion into the air with the T-booster, it looks a little awkward. Definitely, if you have the T-booster on, this is about the only pose you can pull up besides a neutral ground pose, just kind of like charging forward and shooting the gun forwards, or wielding the sword, as you'll see in the conclusion when I have that like kind of extra, I guess, B-roll posing footage. But yeah, the T-booster just looks goofy. Like, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. It does not look good. It just looks really funny. And the stand is there for good reason. So this is the only kind of real stand that I have that has the kind of peg that would hold the Dantalion with the T-booster, and unfortunately it's a little bit too tall. This is the Action Base 4 that comes in like Super Robot Wars kits. Yeah, it's a little bit too tall, so the tripod leg that normally connects to the T-booster can't reach the ground. So I don't know if you can tell, but the Dantalion's torso is definitely doing a gigantic lean back. The polycap joint is not strong enough to hold to kind of keep the Dantalion's pose rigid with this very heavy T-booster on its back. So yeah, while this is definitely the T-booster's intended purpose to have it in the air charging forward, wielding the bayonet rifle, it's definitely not something I would pose it on the shelf doing. It just looks kind of strange and awkward. Like, I like flight packs and things like that, like the Astray Kai with the tactical arms of flight mode, things like the Ale Strike, the like the Justice, things like that. I like flight packs, and this is not it. I'm definitely not posing it like this on the shelf. I don't know why people would. But it's a good thing that the T-Booster isn't stuck in that really awkward jetpack booster thing on its back. This is the T-Booster in half cowl mode top, of course, with the Dantalion about to deliver like a leaping, giant, flying downward punch. This is definitely really impressive. It's definitely the way I think most people will pose the Dantalion as on the shelf. These arms just look right on the Dantalion. It looks really cool. It's very reminiscent of something like the Astray Powered Red, or the kind of Hrairoo Gigantic Arms, or the Owsla Gigantic Arms, if you have ever built those, or if you ever built the Typhoeus Gundam Chimera. If you don't mount the dragon boosters and just mount the like big arms on it, it kind of looks like this. But yeah, it's a mobile suit with gigantic arms and fists. What's not to like? It looks really cool. This is definitely a pose I would consider posing it in on the shelf, but this also demonstrates a couple of things, namely the articulation in the top cowl is a little lackluster. If you look at the kit's left arm, you can't really raise the arm more than 90 degrees, which kind of hampers the effect of it kind of winding up to deliver a giant punch or a haymaker or something, which doesn't look the greatest. You can do some like camera work and stuff to make it look better in videos and and in photos, but in person it looks a little awkward. So if it could raise that arm just a little bit more, it would be basically perfect. I would love it. This is definitely a really cool pose, something I would consider having it on the shelf, but the little bit of awkwardness kind of means that I'm kind of a little disinclined to pose it like this as compared to something like the next pose. So here is the Dantalion in the air with the half cowl holding onto the giant sword. Like I mentioned earlier, the proportions of the giant sword while the Dantalion was in the naked form looked a little awkward, but when it's wielding it in the gigantic arms, it does look quite good. But it does take up a lot more volume. As you can see, I'm having to kind of manipulate my booth and like stretch out the walls a little bit so that it can spin around properly without colliding and dropping it, because the grip of the half cowl onto the sword, even with the adapter, is a little bit loose. It tends to fall off pretty easily. When I was putting it onto my shelf after recording all this footage, it like bumped one of the top shelves and immediately fell out, so that was a little annoying. Putting the adapter in also tends to shove the hand back into the arm to revert it back into the booster form, so just make sure to pull the hand out after you put the adapter in. So you might notice that this is a very similar pose to what I had the Dantalion doing in the naked form with the sword, but it's in the air. That's because, as you might imagine, this kit becomes extremely top-heavy with the arms on, and the legs tend to kind of give out if you have it on the ground. So unless it's leaning on something, you have some kind of support, it will probably fall over if you have it on the ground with the arms swinging the sword. That's like kind of the biggest downside of this kit, besides color accuracy, of course. It is going to be this kit's pretty unwieldy and unbalanced with the half cowl on, so just be careful. If you're not doing like a basic neutral standing pose, it's pretty difficult to get it to stand upright unassisted. So yeah, definitely consider getting like an action base. I would definitely want a smaller action base than this. If I had like an action base 7 or something, that would be like perfect. But as it is, this is a pretty cool pose, and definitely something I'll consider having it doing on my shelf. So in conclusion, the high-grade Gundam Dantalion is a very interesting high grade. It's not every day you get a high grade that has like these kind of gigantic mounted arms on it. Like I don't think the Powered Red has a high grade, and things like the Hazel Owsla Gigantic Arms, the Hrairoo Gigantic Arms, those are all premium Bandai kits. The Typhoeus Gundam Chimera is like ludicrously expensive, it's like a $90 kit, and while the arms are pretty cool on that, it's not worth $90 just for the arms. And you also have things like the Huckbind Boxer, which also is a very similar kind of effect, but again, that kit's also really expensive. I think it's like $120. I love that design, so I pre-ordered it, but that's not something I can definitely recommend other people do. But for the Dantalion, this is a $20-ish kit that comes with gigantic arms, and it has it has relatively few accessories, but the accessories it has are very versatile. The bayonet rifle can be used as either a rifle or a very impressive large sword. The big T-booster can either be used as a unwieldy-looking jetpack or cool gigantic arms. And all of that for $20 is definitely a point in this kit's favor. You definitely get a lot of value out of this kit. In addition to this kit's kind of unique aesthetic, especially compared to a lot of other IBO kits, the kind of understated aesthetic of the base naked form compared to a lot of other IBO kits, it's a lot less aggressive, a lot less angular, especially in the head, which looks a lot more humanoid-ish. It's very rounded and subdued, especially compared to other IBO kits. It definitely gives it a kind of unique appeal. And definitely will stand out a bit on your shelf. Not really in the naked form, because again, the silhouette's very kind of subtle compared to a lot of other kits, but definitely with the gigantic arms, it will 100% stand out on your shelf. That gives it a ton of presence, with the added downside of it taking up a hell of a lot more space on your shelf. In terms of articulation, this kit is fairly solid. It's a pretty typical average high-grade fare. Articulation in the feet are going to be a little limited by that ankle armor, by tilting side to side, so definitely consider getting an action base if you want to get this kit. The connection between the bicep, like the upper bicep and the shoulder, is also a little bit loose, so just keep that in mind if you're posing the arms or reposing it fairly frequently. The biggest kind of downside to this kit is definitely color accuracy. If you want a kind of basic color accurate model, you're going to need to do a fair amount of painting, definitely more than your typical high grade. Like, I'm reminded a lot of like 20-year-old high grades, like mid-2000s stuff in terms of color accuracy on this kit, especially on the forearms and legs. There are significant amounts that need to be repainted, either light gray or silver, to kind of make a color accurate kit with that very cool kind of scaffolding, kind of exposed, like kind of in-between frame of the armor showing. It's definitely something to consider, and if you really don't like painting and you just want something that looks color accurate out of the box, then this kit is something to avoid. If you don't mind doing a little bit of painting, and I think a lot of people are definitely willing to put in just that little bit of extra effort it takes to get it color accurate, then this kit definitely looks really cool, especially if you use like a metallic silver color to paint that kind of in-between armor layer that's exposed on the arms, legs, and torso. It looks very, very good. It's very striking, especially once you've like combined with the presence of the gigantic arms. While the articulation of the gigantic arms is a little bit limiting, you can definitely pull off some very cool stuff with it. Again, the added presence is more than worth the kind of hassle of working with the gigantic arms. The transformation between the booster and the arms is pretty seamless, and definitely not really that much of a hassle compared to some other transformations. So yeah, this is a very cool model, especially for the price and the kind of unique value it provides. This is, to my knowledge, the only kit that has these kind of like gigantic limbs that can cover up the original limbs, unlike something like the Powered Red or the gigantic arms from the Advance of Zeta kits. That is at a normal price. For $20, having this kind of very unique gigantic, again, I keep saying it, it's very unique having these gigantic arms at this price, and for that reason alone, this is a recommendation from me. It's a very cool kit. If you can find it for like $20, $21, $22, it's definitely something I would recommend picking up. It's a unique addition to any collection. So that was my review of the high-grade Gundam Dantalion. What do you think of this kit? I know I was a bit rambly in the conclusion. I have a lot of thoughts on this kit, and it's kind of hard to get them out succinctly. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this kit. If you like this video, give it a like. If you like reviews like these, please consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you in a few days with my review of the SDCS Tornado Gundam. I'll see you then.